Welcome to the Business Bravery Podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery Podcast, I just don't enjoy the achievable side of SMART goals, okay? If I'm in the realm of achievable, I am bored, I'm not having fun, I'm not feeling challenged, and I need those things to stay interested and to keep taking action and moving forward. So for me, I like being able to shoot for the moon, land on the stars. The other side of that brave goal setting then is also that by going bigger, we then trigger more of those fears for us to work through, okay? Now, and maybe as I say that, you might go, oh, that sounds horrible. Who wants to deal with fears? So part of this whole bravery board process is that we're working through the negative thinking and those objections in our brain ahead of time so that we have a plan before it happens. I'm your host, Tiffany Gilleland, an Australian business and mindset coach with 10 years experience in online marketing and the creator of the Business Bravery Framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. In today's episode, I want to talk about self-sabotage and negative thinking and how it stops us from achieving our bold, brave goals in business and life. I'll be sharing my own experiences in the last few months and how my Bravery Board Vision Boarding process helps me through this. If you're wondering what I'm even talking about, what is a bravery board? I don't care about vision boards. Just stick with me for a moment, right? It is my unique approach to not just doing a vision, but also setting goals and working through the negative thoughts that can come up ahead of time so that you can take bigger, bolder actions, right? So instead of setting a plan, going off and doing the plan, and then, oh, look, there's some negative thinking that's stopping me from taking action, or I feel fear, we actually work through it at the planning stage so that we can set up a game plan to kind of move through it is the idea. And so part of that is setting brave goals, which I'll talk about, and then planning it out. So today's episode is useful for you if you are struggling with consistency in any area, if you are holding back on taking the big, bold actions that will move you forward in your business. For example, committing to a niche, having conversations with strangers, creating content, doing videos, running that masterclass, launching that podcast. So, it's a bit like a lot of us know that in order to sort of change like what we weigh or our physical state, that means making changes to eating habits and movement habits, okay? Notice I didn't say it meant eat less, work out more, right? Because that's not always the answer. Sometimes the answer can be very different depending on your goals, right? And I think a lot of the times, like, deep down, we kind of know that in order to have a business, we need to get more clients, we have to sell. But a lot of the time, for many of us, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you might kind of get stuck, especially because your brain starts feeling the fear. It's, working outside of your comfort zone, it triggers that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And for many of us, we can be stuck in freeze mode, or we can try and move through the freeze mode, but it just feels so uncomfortable and then we don't get great results. Anyway, that's my whole thing about sometimes why I feel the fear and do it anyway doesn't always work for all of us. And that's part of my mission. Anyway, so it is useful if you are holding back on taking those big, bold actions. You know what they are, or you might find yourself saying, oh, I'm not clear. I'm waiting on a download from the universe that never comes, right? I'm waiting for inspiration. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I'll make that decision later. I need to focus on this client because they're my only client at the moment. All of these things I have done before. So just know you're not alone in this stuff. So it's also useful if you are having some trouble focusing on any and all tasks that would likely get you the business that you want. So a bit of what I was talking about a moment ago, a lot of the time it's like we can know the next move forward in our business is, oh, okay, yeah, I want to get more clients. That means I need to go out and make more offers, right? Seemingly very fine to do. However, then, you get this emergency email from a client and then you're working on their stuff. And then all of a sudden you don't have time to go out and get new clients in. And so that's kind of what I mean by that focusing thing. It's like you're trying, but it's sort of just not coming together. So what I'm going to be talking about in this episode, especially sharing like what's been happening in my own experiences so that you can learn from this episode. So some of the key takeaways for today is being able to spot sneaky sabotages that seem reasonable but are actually holding you back. How to reframe negative thinking so you can take bolder, braver action in your coaching business. What are brave goals and why do I prefer them over SMART goals? And I should say that with my visioning and planning system and all of this stuff, it's not a thing where it's like you have to do brave goals. Like if you like SMART goals, you can do that. But it's just, here's why I do brave goals. Here's this system. And you can choose whether or not you take that part of the system or not. But the rest of it still can work equally well, even if you are a proponent of SMART goals and you love them. So how I'll also be talking, the other takeaway is, how does the Bravery Board Vision Boarding process work? And as I say that out loud, that's a kind of hard sentence. Okay, but how does this whole Bravery Board process work for visioning and planning? That's a better way of saying it. So that you can sign more clients and do bold, brave things in your business. Okay. So something I would love to draw to your attention is that I am running the next round of Bravery Board Masterclasses where I'm teaching you all of this stuff in depth and run you through the process so that you get to do it yourself and have your own answers to the questions and things like that. Those are happening in March. There's a variety of dates in different time zones and times and all that kind of thing. So you can check that out over on my website, tiffanygstudios.com, Tiffany, G for golf, Studios.com, or come over and find me over on Instagram at Tiffany G Studios. Tiffany, G for golf, Studios. No spaces, no hyphens, none of that stuff. And you can find the booking link in the links area where you find them on Instagram, or you can just DM me, ask me questions, that kind of stuff. So let's now that you know that is happening, and if you know me and have been following me and are super keen, then you're welcome to just go and book that in now while you listen to this podcast. Or you can keep listening to my stories of self-sabotage. So let's dive in and talk about what is self-sabotage, okay? So for anyone who isn't aware, self-sabotage can look different for different people. Okay, it can be a fine line between self-care and self-sabotage sometimes. And this is something that I have often kind of struggled with working out between, am I holding myself back from my goals or am I looking after myself? And one of the things in my experience is that I deal with chronic health situations. Yeah, situations. That's a cool way of saying it. Chronic health conditions. And so that for me, certain things, like I have to really watch my stress levels, or that can throw things off. I can end up having sort of fatigue and stuff like that. I deal with chronic pain in my back and my leg. That stuff has to be managed. And when I sort of increase what I'm doing or increase my stress levels, that can really increase that chronic pain side of things. So it's been a very interesting, delicate balance of, okay, what's self-care and what's self-sabotage sometimes. I want to say, from my perspective, a kind of a guiding force for me is that self-sabotage and the decisions we make around self-sabotage, they're usually hurried. They're usually quite stressed out. They usually, for me, it's coming from a place of fear, wanting to avoid fear, worrying about the future and that kind of thing. And that's when certain self-sabotage things come into play. So I will talk a bit more about some examples of what self-sabotage can look like. But basically, I'm talking about anything that sort of stops you from moving forward or moving towards your goals. I want to stress that this is different from like a very calm, considered decision of actually, there's, what is it? I am at my maximum capacity. I can't take on one more thing. I'm not ready to take on this next thing. And I'm going to leave it for some time until I am ready again. These days I like to kind of put sort of I'm going to revisit this idea in 6 months, a bit like, oh, I'm totally going off the cuff. I'm not even following my dot points right now, but it's sort of like having like when you're decluttering your house and you can like put things in a time will tell bin or something like that, so that, oh, if I need this again or that kind of thing. But instead it's like, okay, I'm actually going to put something in my calendar for 6 months from now so that this big idea of mine, I can come back and revisit it. Sometimes it comes up before then naturally, and that's totally cool. But other times, I don't know, I feel like when I'm in that mode, then it sort of helps. Some other, I don't know, caveats to this is the situations where I've been taking on too many things. I've been saying yes to too many things. I haven't been watching my boundaries. My work-life balance is off and that kind of thing. And then the decision to not move forward with something anymore becomes very sudden. And to me, that's still coming from self-care, right? Like I said, self-sabotage and sort of saying no out of fear, out of worry, that kind of thing. That's sort of some of the stuff that I sort of am looking for, right? You get to define what self-sabotage is for you, and don't let anybody tell you what it is. Don't also let anybody say you should be doing more, like you could be doing more, you should be doing more, or any of that, and especially that voice in your head that might say those things. Okay, so some of my favorite go-to thoughts behind self-sabotage are thoughts like, no one cares, they won't want this, they won't want it from you. Some of my old favorites, right? Other times it has been, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that right now. I'm not ready yet. I've just got to focus on my clients because they're bringing in money, and yet I'm not setting up things for the future so that my business can grow, so that I can grow, things like that. And sometimes doing all the other things instead, like a bit of a mad thing. And that's definitely something that happened to me in this week. Like I really noticed some warning bells for me in terms of, so I plan out my weeks ahead of time, and I normally follow my calendar plan through the day. I never follow it perfectly, very rarely follow it perfectly, but I usually get the really important stuff done. I follow it through 80% of the time. I'm quite happy with that. That is a decision that I'm happy with, and to me that works. I'm a big picture visionary person, and as long as I don't beat myself up for not always getting all the things done, then I'm actually quite happy with that, and I have trust in myself that things will get done and all that kind of thing. What I found myself doing this week, however, was definitely overscheduling myself to the point that I was too overwhelmed to kind of start anything. I was tired before I started the day. There was a whole day of good stuff on my calendar and I didn't stick to any of it. I was like, oh no, this other thing is completely more important. And it's like, I have to map out this masterclass because it's in 4 weeks and it's in somebody's membership and she's waiting for it. And I really got to get that done. It should have been done last week. And do you see how I'm starting to even talk even faster? Even though I'm Australian, we talk fast. It's, you can kind of hear the energy behind it. You can hear that self-sabotage, that hurriedness, that I'm not connected to my higher self, which is calm and considered and has faith in myself and how things will play out in the universe. Okay, so those are some of the things, some of the warning signs right? Some more recent self-sabotage that I unearthed is that some new thoughts of it won't work and it's too late, right? This is a fun one, and if there are any perfectionists or former perfectionists in the room, that kind of thing, that it's too late one can be really insidious, because oftentimes we procrastinate on something that we care about up until a deadline or some kind of deadline we have in our head. For example, I should follow up with people from a masterclass within 48 hours or within a week, whatever. And if we miss that deadline, then in our head we can go, oh, it's too late. I can't possibly send that through now. They already think that I am not good enough, or things like that. So this whole story that plays out in our head. Meanwhile, the other person hasn't thought two thoughts about us, and we could easily reconnect at any time, right? Same for not sending out things as I promised, that kind of thing. So this self-sabotage can also, it can come up a lot because we're doing things outside of our comfort zone, and the subconscious is like triggered. It's worried, it wants to keep us safe. And this feeling of fear and uncertainty of doing something outside of our comfort zone reminds us of something from childhood. And so then it really wants to keep us safe. And that's how we can end up in the freeze mode, or of that fight, flight, or freeze, right? Or one of my personal favorites is the avoidance mode, right? Which is that flight, I think, the avoidance. As I'll talk about later, that actually just makes things worse too. Anyway, so some other fun sort of self-sabotaging thoughts, and then like the actions that these can lead to, of like, it's too hard, I'm not clear, I'm waiting on a download from the universe that never comes because you're too anxious or jittery to take it in, right? Something I have noticed. It's like, in order to get a download from the universe, you need to be able to detach and get that kind of detached sort of feeling that you get from manifestation. And yes, that's when I'm too anxious and jittery, then that download never comes. I get really worried that I haven't got the download and where's my answers? And oh man, that's, you just take a break, walk away. So then, so just a little bit of context for me in just explaining like how I moved through this and how I'm shifting through and taking action again and getting back on task, getting back on track. That's the words, cliched as ever, but yeah, getting back on track. So for me, this is a process for me of moving into goal setting, and goal setting from kind of a more formal side of things, and from a way of lining it up with the quarters and that kind of thing. This is something that I thought, it occurred to me last year, and I'd been kind of having some little whispers from the universe. It's like, hey, we might want to try this. And then I wanted to run the Bravery Board workshops in December for visioning and planning out the next quarter. It seemed to make sense in terms of talking to people about this kind of stuff and connecting. So you just need to know that for me, I used to set goals like around launches, but I'm kind of a rebel. Like, just because people tell you you're supposed to do things on this quarterly basis, and somebody decided January, February, March and things like that. I know it ties in financial stuff and all that kind of thing, but there's still just this part of me that's like, why do I have to do it then? I want to do it now, and I want to do it at different times, and don't tell me what to do. So now I'm trying out being told what to do, and it's an interesting experience. But I guess I just need you to know that I'm not someone who grew up setting goals and smashing goals. In fact, I never used to set goals because I had such low self-esteem. I didn't want to be disappointed. And then the perfectionist in me also didn't want to feel the shame and the judgment around me not achieving the goals. So why even set goals, right? And then I played around with setting systems, which I quite enjoy, and that's part of my process. But I also realized the power of having some sort of goal to sort of guide you. Okay. So now let me talk to you a bit more about what happened in December and the Bravery Board process. Okay. So this is how I brought in a whole range of tools that I already use on a near daily basis to work through fear, to work through anxiety, to work through why aren't I taking action, to shifting my identity, to achieving goals, that kind of thing, right? And I brought this all in together to combine it with the vision board type process. Okay. So the way the bravery board process works is like we start out with sort of like a meditation to sort of calm ourselves and really connect to our highest self. And then we also kind of do this like visualization as part of that, sort of it's a mixture of meditation and visualization. And we visualize, we connect to our future self. We did, 31 March, where are you going to be? How are you going to feel? That how are you going to feel? So, so important. And just, feeling it, being in our favorite place. It's awesome. I love this. And in fact, just for anybody who ever runs a masterclass ever, I would highly encourage you to like start with some kind of meditation or meditate yourself before you run it, because it just chills you the F out as facilitator. So we start off, we have the meditation and visualization, then we shift into looking at our identity. And it's like looking at, okay, who are we now? And then like, who do we need to become? What could change? Not from a place of, oh, you're terrible, you're not doing all the things, you're not posting all the posts and that kind of thing, but from this real kindness of like, hey, I'm doing these things. What would be fun to shift? What would be a fun thing to explore? Okay, what could be different? And even just the process of writing that actually helped me manifest changes in how I was looking after my numbers in my business and my content, that kind of thing. And I hadn't even really checked in, but 6 weeks later, I was already moving through those shifts just by writing it down. So, so powerful. Love that. Then we move into journaling, and that's where we set the brave goals. Okay. Then we set some systems to achieve those goals. Then we look at the thoughts that come up. So this is where I should explain the difference from brave goals versus smart goals. So brave goals are different from smart goals in that they are bigger and bolder. It's really shooting for the moon and landing on the stars. And there's kind of two reasons for this. Number one, for me, I just don't enjoy the achievable side of smart goals. Okay. If I'm in the realm of achievable, I am bored. I'm not having fun. I'm not feeling challenged. And yeah, and I need those things to stay interested and to keep taking action and moving forward. So for me, I like being able to shoot for the moon, land on the stars. The other side of that brave goal setting then is also that I like the idea of, oh, I've lost the thread of what I was thinking about. Gosh, I've written about this so many times this week, and then I go to tell you guys and okay. So we're not in the realm of the achievable, and by going bigger, we then trigger more of those fears for us to work through. Okay. Now, so, and maybe as I say that, you might go, oh, that sounds horrible. Who wants to deal with fears? So part of this whole bravery board process is that we're working through the negative thinking and those objections in our brain ahead of time so that we have a plan before it happens. So that when it comes up during the time of implementation, it's like, oh, yep, brain, I know you're giving me that thought. And I will explain this with examples in a minute. I know you're giving me that thought, but you know what? I've got a plan for this, and here's what we're doing, and get your brain back on track, and then sort of like move through the fear and then be taking action. Okay. The other part of brave goals is then, because we're shooting for the moon, the whole time bound thing, that just doesn't jive for me, right? It just doesn't fit for me, because like one of my big brave goals, and it's not the big brave goal for this year, but it's definitely kind of like the 5-year goal, the 10-year goal is the 7-figure business. Okay. Earning 7 figures of revenue in one financial year. That is one of the things. And yet, like for me, even the other smaller goals on the way to that, like those are kind of outside of my control. For me, when it comes to Brave goals, it's all around the effort and the consistency of effort to get towards that goal, right? So, did I put in 80% of effort towards that goal? Then that's when I feel good and I'm on track, okay? Because I just think, tying it into how much money you earn, how many followers, how many clients, like that stuff outside of your control. And if you're not careful, you can easily beat yourself up over that kind of stuff. Whereas, like, I can control how often I post, how often I put out a podcast, how often I talk to people, how often I put out offers. Do you see what I mean? And so that's sort of the realm that I like to play in. And then obviously it's like, have I been putting in the consistent effort towards my Brave goals? Then it's about putting in systems to do those Brave goals. So, for example, one of my goals is to put out at least 48 to 50 podcasts this year. So the system that I have for that is my, content creation Mondays. There's a whole thing where I do a batch of 4 podcasts and do them in a day with a bit of preparation, do them in a day. And so and I'll be talking about that next week on the podcast, so you'll have all about that. And didn't even mean to do that, but there we go. Teasing future content without meaning to. And so, do you see how then it's like, okay, let's put the system in place. So, for example, another one of the goals is, all right, I wanted to run 8 masterclasses in March. So then the system, then I had to look at, okay, how many per week is that, and all this kind of thing. I didn't account for Easter, however, so I'm actually putting on 6 in March, but I am doing a 7th in somebody's membership. So then, yeah, I don't know, maybe another one will end up happening. There's room on that side of things, but I've just locked in the 6 dates for that. So then through the process of doing the Brave goals and the systems, then we look at the thoughts that come up, okay? So the thoughts that I had when I was setting mine in December was my old favorites of they won't care, nobody will care, they don't want this from you. One of my old favorites, and definitely an old standby from my former identity of having far less self-confidence, belief in myself, all of that stuff. So then we reframe, and I like to reframe rather than just being like, oh, okay, of course you can. You've got a plan, you've got the strategy, just go do it, which was something I tried for many years, didn't work for me, is shifting into thoughts of actually it's possible that people will care, and shifting into that realm of possibility, because then from it's possible doesn't take into account anything that happened before today. So if you failed every other day for the rest of your life before today, it's still possible that you could sign a client today, even if you didn't sign one for a month or your entire life, right? And so stepping into that it's possible means then you can start the brain looking for evidence, and it'll start finding evidence of, oh, it's possible. You can see the small successes. Hey, somebody messaged me. Somebody sent through last week of, I really enjoyed your podcast. I listened. Oh my God, love that. If you're listening to this, please send me a message. Tell me that you listened. So that's where the thoughts and the reframes. And then those reframes are they're part of the strategy going forward. It's like, yes, I've got my goals, I've got my systems, and I have my new thoughts. And it's not a case of we reframe them in the masterclass and then they never come up again, because these are well-worn pathways. We reframe them, we have the reframes there as our go-to, so that when the brain inevitably says them again, you can go, oh, yep. So that's kind of interesting. So then the goals and the new thoughts, we add that into a vision board with some pretty pictures. We have something to refer to, and then we start the checking in process and that kind of thing. So now we are kind of at the end, we did all that stuff in December. Then Christmas happened. I actually had some minor surgery in December. Christmas happened, and then January back into it. And then I was doing my first check-in at the end of January, and I went live on Instagram to share where I've gotten up to. And I discovered during my first check-in some new self-sabotages and some new negative thoughts, right? The "it won't work," "it's too late," I was making decisions slower, I was adding in last minute things. An example of that is, so one example of that is I had a plan in my head to run like a pop-up group for the next round, a pop-up Facebook group for the next round of masterclasses. Then in the middle of doing whatever, I'm like, you know what? I should just run it now. I should start it now. And those decisions that I'm making oftentimes out of fear, out of scarcity, out of worry, and that kind of thing, right? So adding in last minute things that weren't part of the plan. And that's not to say that you can't make those last minute decisions and add things in. It's just make sure they're coming from the right place and that you like your reasons for making those changes, right? So then, like I said, my days are getting more chaotic and hectic. I wasn't following the plan, like I said earlier this week. And then I'm definitely not acting as the best version of myself. I'm not, I want to say cool, calm, and collected, but that's kind of my version of some of my best, the best version of myself is just, it's a lot calmer, it's confident, and it's not hurried and rushed and that kind of thing. Not that there isn't room for doing things quickly and that kind of thing. It's just it's those things are not coming from a place of scarcity or not being enough or not having enough money. And that's the very definition of scarcity. So yes, you probably understand that. So some other things that I was doing was I was definitely making less offers, right? I didn't check in with masterclass participants, and I'm disappointed in myself about that. I don't really want to sort of share that with you guys because you know, it's not fun to show you guys. Like, it'd be much easier to just hide behind the curtain of I'm a coach, everything's okay. But I find that, like, you know, I just want to share the truth. I mean, not the whole unadulterated truth, but at least the truth of, you know, things are not always rosy and we have to move through them. And especially because I have this process to move through it. So just a couple of other things that were going on. I noticed I hadn't planned out key tasks to be ready for March, for the March masterclasses. This is a fun thing of self-sabotage that I love to do to myself. I'm like, oh, I'll come back to the planning later. I'll get to that. And, you know, oh, I'm not ready to make that decision yet. Things, because what if I make the wrong decisions? What if the plan isn't right? What if I'd spent time making the plan and the plan wasn't right? And then I would feel bad and shame and judgment, right? See these things, like, knowing yourself and understanding these repeating patterns is so valuable, okay? And then just one last thing that I noticed was that I was overcommitting on things like coffee chats and things like that. So I had to put some things into my diary so that I couldn't have too many of those in a week, booked in, that kind of stuff. So this is where the Bravery Board process kicks in, because it's not just, hey, we do the vision board and then we don't look at it again. All of those steps that I went through, that whole meditation, especially the journaling, looking at the thoughts, reframing, all of that can be done at any time, especially when you notice that you're stuck, that you need to calm the F down, you know, you want to move forward on your big dreams and you just can't seem to make yourself do it. You've had something on your to-do list week after week after week. Like, that's one of my warning signs, actually. So I had things on my to-do list, like reaching out to masterclass participants for like 4 weeks. And then, and here's the fun part, because I had to go live and share this and where I was up to, that made me take action. And I had to break it down to, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to reach out to 3 people. And I had to journal it out and go, okay, so I'm going to write a message. The message is going to say this. And then I'm going to send that to this person and that person and that person, and really like write it out in these small steps so that I could take action. So my brain's like, yep, here's what we're going to do. We can take these small actions through that just block in taking action, right? This is one of my fun go-tos when I'm struggling to do the hard things, because I talk about fear and that kind of thing a lot, but actually sometimes it's just like, oh, that's hard. It's not fun. I don't want to do it, right? And it's, to me, that can be all together in the same sort of thing that can keep you stuck, right? So this is why this process is just really, really powerful. So then it's a case of, all right, meditating, visualizing, reconnecting with our higher self and the future self, looking at the shifting the identity and looking at what's going on now and at the end of January. And then, what do I need to, what could I change? What would be fun to change in order to get to this new result at the end of March? And then the same with going back through the journaling and looking at the brave goals, the systems. And it's like, okay, yes, we definitely need to plan out more of those systems and that kind of thing. And then, and then it was really working through it's possible that it's not too late. And then that's where I had to take the small steps to give my brain evidence that it wasn't possible, that it was possible, that it wasn't too late, right? To prove that, yes, it's possible, it's not too late. So yes, and that's kind of the process. And then it's like, okay, let's update the goals, new thoughts we add into the vision board, okay? And I just want to say, for anybody who's listening, if you set awesome goals and then in the middle of January or February, things got a bit out of whack or something like that, just know you're not alone. There's a number of people who were at my vision boarding process who, got a bit unstuck, and I'm working through with them now at the time of recording, which is a few weeks earlier than when this goes live. And, kind of doing a bravery booster session type thing is sort of what I'm calling it. And like just helping them get unstuck and get back on track. And just, if you take nothing else, just don't beat yourself up for not sticking with your goals. I mean, we've all been there. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that I'm being so open and really publishing mine out there, that they say actually having accountability and having an accountability partner of some kind actually makes it, I think, oh man, I'm going off the top of my head, but it's like 80% more likely that you'll follow through on your goals. So I have an accountability partner and who I message every week with updates. Another reason I got to notice how these things were moving and not moving off my to-do list. And then also me putting this out to the world and being completely open and telling you guys about it is also a really powerful accountability. So yes, if you want to get to boss level, share it all publicly. Okay. So now let me just talk about why is this process so important. Okay. So the bravery board process, it highlights and it helps you break through the repeating patterns holding you back, right? You noticed that I said things in what I was talking about, hey, here's one of my old favorites that I love to do, the putting things on my calendar and then all of a sudden stressfully going, oh my God, I've got to plan the masterclass now, even though I had it in the calendar for later in the week. It's like, oh no, I've got to change the priority. Okay. I'm not upset that I did that, but it's definitely a warning sign that it's like things are out of control. We're definitely a bit stressed out. We're worried. We're probably in scarcity. Let's take a look at some things, right? Another reason this process is so important is just it has you taking action, okay? You give your brain evidence that you can handle being brave, working outside your comfort zone, and that it won't kill you, right? Because that can be a lot of what's going on. And in fact, a lot of times too, sometimes like we don't want to do the thing because it's boring. That can actually feel quite similar in the brain and in the body too, to us not wanting to do out of fear, is because like, oh man, just like something boring is just, that can feel as bad as something that we think might kill us sometimes. Like our body can have a similar reaction. It can feel similar, even though logically we know they're different. Just that whole subconscious and stress reaction, right? Now, it also reduces stress and anxiety because you start facing things head on instead of avoiding them. Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier. One of my go-tos other than freeze mode is avoidance and sort of that flight mode. But flight mode is not not getting up and running out of the room because my calendar says it's time to look at my bank account. Although I've got to tell you, the amount of times I was supposed to look at my bank account but ended up doing the dishes or the laundry or something, like there's something there, okay? The thing is, it's like the longer you avoid those things, these important things in your business, the more anxious and stressed out you get, okay? And it becomes this self-fulfilling cycle. It builds up bigger in your head, and it can be more torture in this state than actually doing the thing, okay? This is why when I talk about how bravery has changed my business and my life, it really has. Because by just the idea of being brave, it's like, you know, I'm going to be like, I close my eyes, I take a deep breath, and I'm going to be brave, right? I, of course, do a lot of these other things too, because sometimes taking a breath is not enough for me. I've got to do the meditation or movement or something like that to like break the state, and then I have to, you know, move into the journaling and things like that and just visualizing, that sort of stuff. So it's just that allowed me to focus on progress instead of the results, and get all caught up in the why isn't it happening yet? Why aren't they buying yet? Why don't they ever want anything from me? Some of those fun thoughts. And it's like, oh no, I'm being brave. I'm doing the thing. I'm being authentically me. It's messy, that kind of stuff, right? The other powerful thing about this is like when you're stuck in that stress, anxiety, you're avoiding doing the brave thing, you're actually failing ahead of time, okay? So just just bear with me on this one. So you might be afraid to fail. You might be afraid to succeed. You might be afraid that somebody will criticize you if you put out that post, if you tell someone about your coaching, if you put out that masterclass or put out that group coaching, right? So you do nothing, right? You might tell yourself, oh, it's not right yet. I don't have the right idea. It's, you know, it's not clicking for me, that kind of thing, right? So you do nothing, but you start feeling anxious about not doing it, okay? Like at first you do nothing, you put it out of your head and that's all right, but it keeps coming back. It niggles at you, okay? Especially if you are an ambitious person who, you know, does things and does the business thing, and you have this dream and you're stuck in the day job and it's driving you nuts, and then it's like, oh, but you could be doing the business, you know. Or if you're stuck doing service-based work but then, you know, you really want to be doing coaching or transitioning in your business, that kind of thing, right? It niggles at you, and then it just becomes torture in your head, right? It builds up, and all the while you're still not taking action and you're kind of torturing yourself. You might tell yourself, oh, I can't do it now. My family needs me, right? The amount of times family emergencies happen when you're in this phase, it's like they get attracted to you through energetics, okay? I need to focus on this other thing first, right? Oof, one of my favorite things for keeping stuck and not taking action, right? Not taking the bold, brave actions, okay? Not launching the Dream Masterclass, not getting on camera, not doing more reels on Instagram, something that's on my radar for the future, right? So you're not taking action, you're not learning, you're not failing forward, you're not getting the data so that you can improve. And like I said, it's more torture than doing the thing, right? Even though not doing it feels safer in your brain, right? Because it likes the status quo, but then you're kind of torturing yourself and you're feeling all these feelings and emotions and, you know, spikes of different stuff in your brain, chemicals and whatnot, right? And so it usually feels more pleasant than the judgment and shame that we put on ourselves if we don't achieve our goals. If, you know, we tell ourselves, oh, look, you know, if I tried to do it, you know, then I'm sure it would work out. But because I haven't put in all the effort or something can also be another thing, right? So this is why the bravery board process is so important, because it gives your brain evidence that you can do hard things. You can do brave things. You can achieve your dreams. You can handle failure and the emotions that come with failure, right? You can actually start to move into maybe seeing failure as a good thing as we progress and we learn, right? And it just makes it easier to take action. That's why I am so passionate about this whole process, right? So now let me tell you about the Bravery Board Masterclasses, the Vision Board with a twist, okay? and then I will recap and then we'll be done. Okay. So the Bravery Board Masterclasses, that is the place to be to learn the whole process for free. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean that to rhyme. I went off the cuff and I rhymed and it's cliched. Stay with me. It's where we come together as a group over Zoom, right? We visualize, we set brave goals. Of course, if you're a lover of smart goals, you can do that too. But we set goals, we set brave goals, right? We plan out the next quarter. Okay, at the time of recording that, this is Q2 2024. On the off chance that I reuse this again in the future, then like think about what's the next quarter coming up. If you're based in Australia, I know we have a whole different quarter system because our whole financial year runs from July through to June. So I'm sure you can adjust it. If you're wondering what quarter we're in, DM me, I will answer you. But we plan out the next, right? So that, excuse me, you can work through those thoughts holding you back, and then we reframe them so that you can take more actions. As I said before, this is a repeatable process. And as part of it, we look at shifting your identity so you can become a new version of yourself, not from a place of lacking in scarcity, but from a place of, oh, this would be fun to grow in this way. Okay. Together, we connect and we support each other through the process. Okay. And then we put all of this into a vision board to keep you moving forward. Now, I will explain it's a 90-minute session and I'm running you through a process. This does mean that for certain personality types, you might not get all the time in the world to think it through, okay? The plan is for you to learn the process and then you get to sit down with it on your own afterwards, run through it again at your leisure, unless you're a quick decision maker and you're a manifesting generator like me, and then you probably can get it all done in the whole 90 minutes. But the idea is that you have this process to take away and then you get to apply it and run through it at your own pace. That pace gets faster each time you do it. Okay. Together we tap into the possibilities and the manifestation. And just as an example, in December, we had one of the participants went from in the class, she was saying, I can't sell, it's December, to running a masterclass the very next week, because she shifted and reframed. Okay. There was, of course, other, realizations like, oh, I need spaciousness. I want to change this. I want to do that. It was awesome. There was a lot of people who said, oh, I never take the time to sit down and really think this through and visualize and, plan this out. This is amazing. It's like they got to connect with another part of themselves that they don't take the time to. Okay. You get to set the brave goals, which, like I said, they're different to the smart goals. And you can, come away with like the goals, your systems to achieve those goals, and then, your new thoughts that you want to intentionally choose to help you take action. The thought maps that can help you to, when your brain inevitably comes up with those good old favorites, and you probably know some of them, you might not, depending on how much of this thought work you do. It allows you to then go, okay, all right, I have something to fall back on. I have a plan to move through when things get hard so that I can take more action. Another reason I'm so passionate about this stuff. So book in using the link in my Instagram bio or on the website. So tiffanygstudios.com, Tiffany, G for golf, studios.com, or at Tiffany G Studios, no spaces, no underscores, on Instagram, right? Now, let me recap the key takeaways from today. We went through and I talked about spotting sneaky sabotages that seem reasonable but are actually holding you back, right? Things like, oh, it's too late. I can't possibly reach out now because I didn't hold to this high standards I'm setting for myself that nobody else cares about, right? Could be one of them. And I mean, what's the worst that happens? You reach out late and then like somebody doesn't get back to you. That's okay. There are other people who will, it's okay. Other sneaky sabotages like, it's too late, I'm not clear, the whole thing about overscheduling my week and then changing my priorities at the drop of a hat, all that sort of stuff. how to reframe negative thinking so that you can take bolder, braver action in your coaching business. One of my fun go-tos is It's Possible. My other one I didn't mention, but that I do in the course is the masterclass is I'm learning, right? I'm learning, okay? And then I talked about the difference, the brave goals, right? And just that whole not playing around in the realm of achievable and time bound, but shooting for the moon, landing in the stars, but also being okay with that, because the idea is like we're setting the goals are a goalpost. We don't, and then we celebrate us landing on the stars on the way to the goalpost, but we don't make ourselves feel bad for not hitting the moon the first time around, although we might too. So who knows if you don't try. And then what I also talked about was how the Bravery Board Vision Boarding process worked to help you sign more clients and do bold, brave things in your business. And I may not have really stressed about how this helps you sign more clients. However, I think the idea of setting goals and the systems and then being someone who can do hard things, and for many of us, some of the hardest things to learn is to go out there and sell and tell people about our coaching or even our service-based business. You know what I mean? So I think you can see how that connects. If you can't, DM me and let's have a chat. I'll give you a bonus update over voice note. There we go. Look at me going off the cuff again. Okay. So for anybody who needs to know, this is the stuff that I help my clients do in one-on-one coaching and potentially group coaching and that kind of thing, is just that helping people change the behaviors, unraveling these, repeating patterns, but also tapping into my 10 years of online marketing knowledge. So this is what we do in one-on-one coaching, that kind of thing. And yeah, if that's something you're interested in, reach out. But otherwise, I would love to see you in the Bravery Board Masterclasses in March. They're going to be running in March, June, September, December, right? I think that's right. So yes, more to come. And you can join us. Even if you joined us in December, you can join us again for the masterclasses in March, because we're planning out the next plan and we get to actually have a chat about, okay, where did you get up to? What did you learn from last quarter? What do you want to change moving forward? I just think it's going to be so much fun. Anyway, I'm very excited. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please reach out, and also please leave a review. It definitely helps the podcast. Over on Spotify, you can actually, as long as you listen to a couple of minutes on Spotify, you can actually just hit stars. You don't even have to think about words to say. You can support us that way. It would definitely help us to, help more people with being brave. Thank you so much for listening. And that's it from me. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.